All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Michael Batiste from the Elk Calling Academy. Here at the Elk Calling Academy, our main goal is to shorten your learning curve and help you find success faster out in the elk woods. So welcome to Wapiti Wednesday Q&A. I know we're about 10 minutes early tonight, but I want to make sure we had plenty of time to kind of go over. I'm kind of excited about tonight's discussion. So first off, I want to answer a question that I missed in last week's session. I was asked if I could kind of explain mountain thermals. So basically what mountain thermals are the movement of air based on temperature. So howdy, Utah CCW training. So how you doing, bud? So mountain thermals basically are the movement of air within the mountains. And basically that movement of air is depending on the temperature. So typically mountain thermals are blowing down the mountain in the morning and the evenings, when the air is cooler. We all know that cooler air is heavier, so it drops. Warmer air is lighter, so it rises. So now as the ground temperature starts to rise during the day, that's when those mountain thermals will turn around and go back uphill. Now, what time during the morning do they kind of switch and start going up, or in the evening, when do they switch and start coming back down? There's a lot of factors on that, of where you're hunting, time of the year, what temperature is, all that kind of stuff. So, early in the season, those thermals change in the morning and start going uphill a lot sooner because it's a lot hotter. As the season progresses and it moves later on in the season, the daytime temps are kind of coming down. Nighttime temps are lower, so those down thermals will stay a little later in the morning, coming down before they turn and go back up. And same thing in the afternoon. Since it starts cooling down faster, they'll turn and start coming down. So mountain thermals, I just want to cover that. All right, so we're going to cover two things tonight. First off is, what's the best week to hunt elk? And how do you choose that week year after year? There's a few factors that go into it. So first off, we need to understand that the autumn equinox is what triggers the rut. Okay. The autumn equinox is the equal amount of daylight and darkness at night. It's equal amount. So this year for 2018, the autumn equinox falls on September 22nd. Now, most cows are bred within a 7 to 10 day window around that autumn equinox, but each year it's a little bit different. Okay, the autumn equinox could be the end of that 7 to 10 days, or the autumn equinox could be the start of the 7 to 10 days. Or the autumn equinox could fall right in the middle of that 7 to 10 days. There's a lot of other factors that kind of come into it, and we're going to talk about it. Now, I know, seasons are a little bit different. I mean, here in Idaho, we're August 30th to September 30th. I know Montana goes till the middle of October. Some other states, Oregon, I think you guys are kind of almost getting wrapped up right around that autumn equinox time. So basically, here's what I do. This is how I determine, because what I will do is, for the first part of the season, I'll usually go up for 3, 4, 5 days for the first part, come home, work a couple of days, then go back up, hunt 3, 4, 5, 3 or 4 days. But I always have one long stretch during the season where I'm up there for a 10 to 14 day stretch. Now, how do I determine when do I want that 10 to 14 day stretch to be? So obviously, first thing that I take a look at is the autumn equinox. When is it going to fall? And then I mark that on a calendar. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the moon phase calendar, because I want to know what the moon phase is doing around then. Are we going to have a full moon? Are we going to have no moon? What are we looking like? So this year, we don't really have a full moon at the autumn equinox, but that week the moon is progressing. It is getting larger. The full moon actually happens a day or two after the autumn equinox. That week before the autumn equinox, it's pretty dark. Now, what does that mean? Well, elk activity is going to be higher at night. I mean, they're more active during night anyways, this time of year, especially early in the season. But you get a full moon night and they are extremely active. So does that mean that hunting during the day during a bright moon is going to be poor? Not necessarily. It just means that the elk are going to head to their beds earlier in the morning, and it might be that they don't come out until a little later in the evening. But there's a lot of opportunity during the mid-time or during the midday. Now, one other thing that, you'll hear people talk about the rut. Oh, it's an early rut, or it's a late rut, or, the rut is right on normal cycle. Well, what determines that? Well, if you guys have harvested animals and you're taking the hide off, and you'll notice that some years they have a lot of fat on them, or other years they might only have an inch of fat versus 2.5 inches of fat. Okay, they can anticipate what the upcoming winter is going to be like, and that's what associates that change in the amount of fat that they have on their body. So another thing that I will take a look at is I will go to the Old Farmer's Almanac, or I'll do a Google search for, like this year I did a Google search for winter predictions, or predictions for 2018, 2019 winter, something along those lines. And you can get an idea of what the winter is going to be like, or kind of what they're thinking the forecast is going to be, whether it's going to be a normal snow year or a below average snowfall but colder temps, or above average snowfall. Because the thing you need to understand is the gestational period of a cow having a calf. So they're bred here in September, and they normally drop calves, around, May time. So late May or late April, into May. So if it's going to be a long, hard winter with a lot of snow, that rut is going to be later that year, because they don't want to be dropping calves in the spring too early and have a spring snowstorm come in and dump 4 feet. That calf is just not going to survive. But they also want to drop the calf early enough so that that calf has enough time during the spring and summer and fall to, fatten up, to get some strength, so that, they can make it through the winter. So autumn equinox first, moon phase, and then winter prediction. Okay. If I see that it's going to be a normal winter, then in my mind, I'm thinking that autumn equinox is going to fall in the middle of that 7 to 10 days that most cows are bred. If it's going to be a really hard winter with an above average snowfall, then that autumn equinox will probably be the start of the 7 to 10 day window. And if it's going to be maybe a mild winter, then the autumn equinox may be the end of that 7 to 10 day window. So I wish I could say I've got a scientific formula that calculates all this, but over the 30 years of elk hunting, especially the last probably 10, 15 years or so of kind of going on this equation, we typically, hit the peak rut pretty good. Now, there are other factors involved. Weather, we definitely experienced that last year, where here in Idaho, it was, 100 degrees for the first 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden Mother Nature dumped 18 to 24 inches of snow on us. So weather can certainly, play into it to kind of adjust those things or knock those elk out of their pattern. Number of people, in the woods, that's basically keeping those elk moving and kind of getting them knocked off their normal routine. But for general rule of thumb, if you kind of go on those three things, the autumn equinox, the moon phase, and then the winter prediction. Those will kind of help you really narrow it down on what the best week may be. Now, granted, like I said, you may take that week of vacation because you got to put it in early, and then Mother Nature doesn't cooperate weather-wise. That certainly can happen. All right, second topic, and I got in this discussion last night with a new student, and this is something that really made me, think about this, because we were talking about setups. And I said one mistake that a lot of new elk hunters make is they will set up behind brush or behind a tree. Well, you want to set up in front. And I said you need to trust your camo. And I think that's one thing that new elk hunters struggle with, is trusting their camo, because I hear it all the time. Man, a bull came in and he just pegged me. He was staring a hole right through me. He knew I was there. Well, they're really, really good about picking where the sound came from. So if you're sitting there calling and they come in, they're basically staring in that spot because they're expecting to see an elk there. But if you have something that you are standing in front of that is breaking up your silhouette, you're going to be just fine. Now, here's a great way that you can gain trust in your camouflage. Okay, elk see in shades of gray. So if you're out scouting in your area that you're going to hunt, take some pictures of the area, take pictures of brush, take pictures of the trees, but don't take the picture in color. Change it to grayscale. I think on an iPhone, it's Silverstone or Silvertone or something like that, but change it to that grayscale and then look at that picture. Then you're going to get an idea of what that landscape kind of looks like through their eyes. Now, if you have your camouflage with you, put your camouflage in and stand in front of that bush and have a buddy with you take a picture in grayscale. And just see how your camouflage in that grayscale really blends in. And do this in an area that is shaded, and do it in an area that has sunlight. So, because some camouflages out there, as soon as you get in the sunlight, they just turn into this big white blob. But then there's also others that as soon as you get in the shadows, they turn into a black blob. So by you taking those pictures in that grayscale of in front of a tree or a bush or in a tree thicket, in the shade, in the sunlight, you're going to know exactly what your camouflage looks like in that surrounding, in that grayscale. And then, you'll be amazed. As soon as you do that, you'll be like, whoa, man, my camo blends in a lot better than what I actually thought. So, or you might look at it and go, I need to go shopping. So, but that's just a little tip to help you gain confidence in your camouflage. Okay. Now, what about the face? I am not a fan of face masks or head nets. It's just my personal preference. So, kind of the beard helps break up. But, our cheeks and noses, foreheads, those are pretty shiny spots from the sun. I would recommend a product like Nature's Face Paint, something that's easy to apply, easy to come off. And I've tried a lot of different face paints over the years. Dead Downwind has another 3-color stick that's really quick and easy. The nice thing with a lot of those is they're in little sticks that you can quickly apply, where you could sit there and put it on at camp before you leave, but really a lot of times in the morning you're doing a lot of hiking, your temperature is really rising, you're sweating a lot, so by the time you actually get to where you're hunting, your camouflage is either washed off or you've wiped it off because you're wiping sweat off your face. That's why that's one reason I really like the Nature's paint, because it has a little mirror. And so as soon as I get to the area where I'm really going to start hunting, I can pop that out and just put a little bit. And you don't have to do extravagant patterns. You just need something to break it up. You want to leave a little bit of white, because really, when you look at that gray scale, you're going to see dark gray, light gray, whites. So those whites are actually, lighter areas. So do you worry about your hands? I really don't. So I've worn gloves in the past. I've not worn gloves in the past. I've put, paint on the back of the hands. Most of the time, I don't really worry because again, they're so small, Jimmy, that again, you take that gray scale, you see, those different patterns, and you'll see, some solid white areas. So a small solid white area is not that big a deal. So. All right, guys. So hopefully that kind of answers some questions on how to choose the best week, how to gain confidence in your camouflage, and also we covered, thermals. So, all right, Friday's video is uploading and scheduled. It is the results of the 2018 Cow Call Challenge. So for those of you that were kind of wondering how that came out, that will go live at 6 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday. Now, I know that I said I was going to draw for the Elk Hunter Starter Kit, this end of this week. But guys, I'm sorry, I am being selfish, and I am heading up Friday to scout for the weekend. So you guys are just going to have to wait until Monday or Tuesday. I promise Monday or Tuesday we will draw a winner for that. So, all right, guys. As always, thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate your support. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. Most importantly, though, have fun. We'll see you guys next week on the next episode of Wapiti Wednesday Q&A. Have a great week, guys. All right, Knox.